Hi Joe, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jenny. It's been a busy day today. It's been a lot of PX sherry casks today have been tasted. So it's been hard going.
Hard going on a hot day, but you've just been sat in that chair there, yeah?
Yeah, the heat it's not too bad here actually. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty pretty kind of mild. It's not been closing in around you. Yeah, doing kind of whiskey tasting work when it's really hot. Yeah, isn't fun.
No, that's pretty tricky. Yeah, it's I mean, you can't really see it. Super muggy here. Actually, there's been basically a non-stop sea threat for about the last 3 days, so you've never really been able to see too much past the kind of the end field. But it's just been so warm and so still that the wind turbines aren't going, and that is unusual for up here, really.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's at least somewhere you can't stand up because you're going to get blown over. So we've got a few people who joined us already, so we'll just sort of chat through a couple more seconds just as more and more people join on. But for those who are with us already, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to Field to Bottle number 7. So we're in our 7th week now. And today you've got me, I'm Jenny, and I'm joined by Joe, who's our whiskey director. I've got some snazzy banners in a second. And we're going to be talking about Filey Bay First Release, which was our first ever single malt whiskey. So expect a little bit of nostalgia, I'm afraid, today, as Joe and I get a bit teary-eyed about the fact that it was nearly a year ago that we launched that. So okay, well let's get started properly now. We've got quite a few people on, so welcome everybody. Field to Bottle number 7, and we're talking about Filey Bay First Release here. So I'm Jenny. I head up the marketing here at the Spirit of Yorkshire Distillery. And I'm joined today by Joe Clark, who I'm sure many of you will know, but he's our whiskey director. You can say hi.
Hello.
You're allowed to speak now.
Good. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
So as we said, today we're going to be talking about Filey Bay First Release. So this was we'll just get stuck in and get cracking on it already, but this was our first ever single malt whiskey. So a big moment for a fledgling and new distillery, because there was a lot of time waiting for this, not just the 3 years of maturation, but the kind of the 3 or 4 years before that, when things went from an idea into an actual reality, with the building and the stills, and then actually making stuff through the stills and putting it in the casks. So hello. So as ever, if you've got any questions at all during the broadcast, feel free to just bob them into the comment section, which I think is just below this video here. They'll pop up on our screen, and we'll keep an eye on them and answer them throughout the broadcast. It might be at that moment in time, or we might save it to the end, depending on what's going on. So without further ado, Joe, let's get started. So Filey Bay First Release, what's your overwhelming thoughts about Filey Bay First Release?
It was crazy. We all collectively put so much into it and worked so hard and so kind of tirelessly. And that's not just for the time that we've been laying down the casks, as you rightly mentioned. In terms of time invested, it's way before that for Tom and Dave. Going right the way back to the kind of when discussions seriously started about the distillery. But when you spend 3 years in a production process to make something, you'd think you'd have enough time, wouldn't you? And yet you still end up at this sharp end where things are coming together. So it was a busy time, and it is staggering looking back what we managed to achieve, such a small group of us, I think. What would that? It's hard to pin it down to one thing, Jen, to be honest. There was an enormous amount of relief once it was out there. It was going, and people were enjoying it and tasting it, and it was out there. That was incredible. It was a massive moment for all of us. And it was something that I know everybody collectively was incredibly proud of, and rightly so.
Yes, I think what we'll do is we'll go back, not quite to the beginning, because that's a bit too far, but we'll go back to probably around, as I say, probably about this time, maybe a bit later on in 2018. So let's say about August 2018, and that's when we knew we were going to be releasing a whiskey in 2019. We knew that 2019 was the kind of the the X year for whiskey from the Spirit of Yorkshire distillery. But what we were kind of really trying to get into is this idea that 3 years and a day was never going to be right for us. Just the way that we create whiskey and the way we lay down casks, and because of our use of 2 different types of stills, we just didn't have that kind of a really consistent set of casks that we could just keep churning out an ongoing whiskey, which is why we've been releasing things in batches. So I'm sure many of you know we did first release in 6,000, second release in 6,000, and Moscatel in 6,000. And actually, as we go, those numbers will start to change and adapt. Not everything is just going to be 6,000. And that's why first release was quite special, because it can never really be replicated because of so many different factors that went into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's very much it's like a chapter in a book for our distillery, and yeah, you know, it's never coming back. That's for sure. You know, there's still you know, we still got lots of stock from 2016. I think one of the things that some people have asked me in the past with this, I'll just quickly mention it, is, you know, even though this was a combination of casks from 2016 that would lay down in 2016, we still do have other casks from 2016 that yeah, you know, we can draw on in the future. But yeah, it's long gone, isn't it? It sold out in, I think, was it 5-6 weeks? It was gone.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I think before we'd even announced it to the general public, so just to our cask owners and to people who subscribe to our newsletter, we sold about 1,500 bottles. So it was really exciting, actually, to just sit basically in front of the computer for 3 days and watch it tick in. And you know, we just text each other constantly, being like, "Oh, we've got this now, we've got this now." And so I remember that, just sitting at my kitchen table and constantly watching as things were going on with a very busy WhatsApp group between about 5 of us. So anyway, we've already gone off topic. So August 2018, that was when we really started to get things moving. So we knew that we had to think about a year out. My background is advertising and marketing, and also a lot of packaging too. So one of the things that we were really keen to do is to make sure that we had a design and a look and a bottle that really reflected the quality of what we thought the quality of the whiskey that was inside the bottle would be. So that was crucial to us. So we opened up a design brief to a number of different agencies, and we had just such a fantastic couple of days of pitch meetings where people came back to us with lots of different wonderful ideas. Agencies from around the country, well, around the county, and then one from further afield. And actually the agency that won were the collaborators, and they absolutely blew us away with the designs that they came back with, which then developed into the Filey Bay bottles and the labels that you'll be familiar with today, we're sure. So that was fantastic. And one of the nicest things about them, they're not from Yorkshire, the agency, but actually the creative director who does all the design work is from Hull. So she really, really gets the idea of the Yorkshire wolds, and she really gets where we're from, that this isn't a Yorkshire of dry stone walls and all of that. It's very different. The wolds and the coast aren't necessarily the Yorkshire that you see on the side of a Yorkshire tea packet, for example, and that was fantastic. And so the ideas that they came back with were wonderful. We talk a lot when we're talking about the distillery about respecting tradition but doing things our own way, and that was also really crucial with the packaging. So we weren't trying to totally disrupt the category and come out with something wacky that no one in the whiskey industry or the gin industry and spirits in general had ever seen before. It's not really who we are as a business, and we needed to stay true to our personality. So that's why we also didn't want to kind of just do what's always come before and go down very conventional kind of whiskey advertising or whiskey marketing and packaging tropes. So that was really important to us to find that balance. And we think we've achieved that. And actually we've had some fantastic feedback, both good and bad, that's been really helpful and will help the brand evolve and the packaging evolve as it goes forwards. But just one thing on my continual monologue about the packaging, because this is where I get very excited. But something that was always really important to us as well was this bespoke bottle. So we knew right from the word go, from kind of 2012 when the company was first came into being, that a bespoke bottle was where we wanted to go with this. So it was always a question of that, and that's why we've got this wonderful design on here. And actually I'll just flick up a couple of things that just show kind of a bit more of an evolution about where that came from. So it's not just a pattern that lives on the bottle, but actually it's trying to reflect some of those ripples that you see in the sand, some of the ripples that you see on the fields when the fields are turning over and getting ready for the next season's crops, but also some of those lovely skies that you see just before a sea fret comes in, as of today, when the clouds kind of start to ripple and come together. So all of those things we've tried to pull together through the bottle and the bespoke bottle, with of course our gannet on the front. And I'll start going totally off on a tangent then. So Joe, anything else you want to add about that? We've got a couple of comments coming in, so I'll just take a sneak peek to have a look at this.
Yeah, no, it was really amazing going through. Yeah, so kind of distilling down all these kind of ideas. You know, it took an enormous amount of time. It was, it certainly wasn't just 2 or 3 hours work deciding what this is going to look like. The ongoing discussions of it were really in depth, and we put an enormous amount. Again, it's just another element of it which required a lot of attention to detail and a lot of discussion, to make sure that we got it right. And it's really nice. There's a few kind of people that have obviously vocalized how much they like it in terms of the way it looks and feels. But it's so important. You can make the best tasting whiskey in the world, but actually if it doesn't look good and it doesn't stand out and it doesn't do that spirit justice, then you're never going to sell it ultimately, or you're not going to you're not doing it proud, really. So it was really important, wasn't it?
One of Tom's favorite phrases is that how something looks sells the first bottle, but how it tastes then sells all the rest of them. And so we really felt like we needed, if someone was going to be looking at it,
wise words.
Yeah, in a whiskey shop or in a supermarket or anywhere, or in a farm shop or any of those things, or on a friend's, a collector's shelves, and we wanted them to want to pick it up and to have a look and to touch it and to feel it and for it to stand out in that way, and then to try it and be blown away by the liquid that was inside as well. So this is all part of the thought process that we went through too. So just a quick nod before we get on to the liquid, because I know that's why many of you are here, and you're sort of humouring me by letting me bang on about the packaging for a while. But the name Filey Bay was really important too. And we had so many discussions, sat around various different tables and lists, and people coming away saying, well, I spent all weekend thinking about this, about what we would have called the whiskey, and we found endless old names for the areas and things about all of the different coves and the different parts of the cliffs locally as well as more kind of countryside based ones, so away from the coast and farming in Yorkshire, and then some others that were totally out there and wacky, and we went right round in circles many times, but we just kept coming back to Filey Bay, just because we all love the beach. It felt like a really strong anchoring point for the distillery. Yorkshire is an enormous county with millions of people in it, and known for a hugely diverse range of cultures, but also landscapes too. So we felt we wanted something that really tied us to our part of Yorkshire as well. So that's where Filey Bay came into being. And actually one of my favourite stories is from our launch day, when we coincided our launch day with York Whisky Festival as well. And so I was on the stand at York Whisky Festival, and a man came up to me and was asking about Filey Bay and why on earth we'd called it Filey Bay if we weren't actually in Filey and we were in Hummonby. And I sort of gave him all the spiel that I've just spoken about then, but he just kept going and saying, why not Hummonby? And in the end, I had to say, can you spell Hummonby? And he said, no. And then he said, fair point, I can understand why you named it Filey Bay then. So I quite enjoyed that, because the amount of people that have lived in Hummonby and still can't say it or spell it is quite something. And I'm sure lots of the Scots have that, but it's still, Hummonby didn't quite have such a romantic ring to it as some of the glens did either.
For sure. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So Joe, I guess now I've spoken about the kind of the outside of the bottle and why we chose Filey Bay and all the different design facets that went into that. So do you want to talk a bit more about the liquid and
yeah, absolutely,
the important stuff on the inside?
Yeah, sure. So the first work on first release in terms of the kind of the actual whiskey itself, you could really wind that back right through to the first casks kind of going down. It's hard to pin an exact origin point on when that proper, which casks are you going to start looking at that are going to make the cut for this. Big pieces of work on all the casks ahead of all the distillery projects bottlings, and when you're spending all the time with the maturing stock, you always kind of keep your eye out for the casks that are really singing and the ones that are really kind of really performing really well. And so you're kind of ongoing all the time. Every time you're going through casts, you're kind of thinking, right, well, that one will potentially be in a shortlist for this later on. Of course, they change all the time. But I remember, kind of a big piece of work going right through all the 2016 fillings back in the spring of 16. So this was kind of May, just to kind of start to really get a really solid kind of direction of which ones we're going to focus more on and which ones we're going to go a bit longer. And then, it's a kind of process of just kind of, for want of a better phrase, distilling that down and drilling into those casks. And then, the kind of rounds of sensory work you do on it, it's loads and loads of nosing. And then, of course, once you've nosed through and you go, right, okay, all these casks are really good. I really like these lot. These are all, singing, they're tasting great, smelling great. And then you start bringing them together. And then, of course, when you start bringing more than one cast together, you then do all those rounds of sensory work again, and you keep doing it on different combinations. So it was really, really involved. It was, great length of time. And the final cask that made the cut, there was fillings from July, August 2016. And they were 15 bourbon barrels and then one Oloroso sherry butt. Now, so we're kind of underpinning our kind of distillery character is the bourbon barrel, and creating a kind of super kind of light, easy drinking style of whiskey ultimately. So when we've got a kind of core range in the years to come, that style is at the starting point. So it was really important that this first release kind of highlighted that. I think it'd have been really easy to do a really small batch, and to do something really woody, really kind of dark, really sherried and whatnot. And the decision not to do that made that piece of work longer, and it did make it more challenging, but ultimately really, really worthwhile. And true to us and true to our style. So when you get a bottle of this open, if anybody listening has got a bottle to hand, and you've opened it and poured it, it isn't just relying on wood driven flavour. It's a lot of the kind of distillery character in there, which is really, really important. I mean, I bang on about this all the time, and if anyone's tuned into the previous ones, is balance and getting good balance between your distillate driven flavours and your wood driven flavours, and make sure they come together really nicely. That's what these releases were about. And it was like I say, enormous amount of work, but it was well worth it when it came through. It was a big batch for a first release, 6,000 bottles. A lot of young distilleries do their first release in lots of different ways. And again, I don't think there's anybody who would say that they have completely nailed that. Any distillery that's launched a kind of young whiskey. We did do two things that I think a lot of others probably wouldn't have thought of doing. Again, kind of being a bit more distillate led, doing it in the size that we did it, and also at the price that we did it. Because I think, again, if those of you who are more whiskey orientated that are listening, obviously that you can pick up kind of young first releases from distilleries can often run into hundreds of pounds a bottle. And again, we were kind of really conscious. We've got a fantastic following that's kind of rallied around us over the years that we've been in production, and we wanted to make sure that a there's enough to go around, b that it's accessible, and that it isn't, and these bottles will get opened as well. That's really, really so important. So it's such a dreadful thought when you think about making a whiskey, spending all this time making it, and then actually it's just going to sit in a collection and never get opened. So right number of bottles, good price. And you ensure that people will actually open it and drink it, which, again, really important. Well, it was for us guys. Anyway, I can't speak for every distillery, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And actually, one of the proof points from that was being at York Whiskey Festival the day we launched, when really the onus and impetus is on tasting. So it was quite a brutal crowd in some ways. To give our first ever release to, because nobody held back in their opinions whether it was good or bad, and we had some really really strong feedback right from the word go that was really helpful, actually, as all like kind of both positive and negative feedback can be, because it meant that we were able to kind of work out answers to common questions and things. But it also, what was really interesting was like standing with groups of people, and one person would say, oh, I can't believe you're charging this much for a 3-year-old. I can get a whatever it is from Amazon for 30 quid and it's much better and much older. And then actually watching their friends actually like tell them to pipe down and explain why it was, and being on the sidelines and being able to watch that. And then also saying to people, well, actually shut your eyes and just taste a little bit, and then let me know how much you think it would cost and whether it tastes like a 3-year-old or whether it didn't. And that gave us some actually really, really crucial feedback as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. It was overwhelmingly like positive, wasn't it? And it's probably worth mentioning. I mean, we won stand of the day at that show, and we got dram of the day. Same in a whiskey festival as well, Manchester, wasn't it? Later in the year as well. But yeah, no, we take it all in, don't we? The good and the bad, anyone has to say. But yeah, it was an epic day. So we launched at the distillery on the same day. So we had we kind of had the team split in two, and obviously we were in York along with David. And yeah, the distillery crew were holding the fort there, and we were slammed. It was a great day. It was great week.
Yeah, it was really exciting, because as with everything that we do, as I'm sure many of you will know, that we open out all our releases, get sent to our newsletter database first, which is a great chance to plug signing up to our newsletter, as well as our cask owners. So cask owners, because we appreciate the kind of the loyalty and support you've given us, then you get the first announcements, followed quickly usually by newsletter subscribers, and then followed by the general public. So we sold a significant amount of bottles. I think I might have said earlier, about 1,500 bottles just to those 2 email drops before we even went live to the general public. So we had a degree of confidence going in, but there's still a nervousness when everybody orders, but they then still haven't tried it yet, and to then what the response is going to be. So to the person who's been very appreciative and supportive and bought 6 bottles in one go, but you do still worry about what happens when they taste that first one. And actually the support we got and the feedback we got was brilliant. But it's a nerve-wracking, it's very exciting, very nerve-wracking moment in time. It's quite a big year last year for many reasons, and that was another majorly nerve-wracking part of it. Yeah,
for sure. I think one of the strongest, if not more unusual testimonials we got was from the MP Kevin Hollinrake.
Yeah.
If you remember that one. I think it was about 5 days after it was within the week that we'd launched. I remember because me and Dave were in Whiskey Live Paris, and we suddenly got an alert that he basically was you got to think back to kind of October, November time. There was a lot of coverage on the House of Commons, and Kevin Hollinrake wanders in with a bottle of Filey Bay first release, and challenges Mr. Speaker to explain what he's going to do about protecting whiskey imports, exports, that kind of thing. And that was that's just I suppose a really nice example of just what you just, when you put something out there like this, Yorkshire's first whiskey, and how people can respond to it, and that was a very passionate response, let's say.
It was amazing. I remember getting texts. It was, and then one of the nice things, it was in the Houses of Parliament the day before, and then the next morning on Radio 4 when they have their kind of roundup of Parliament yesterday. The final piece of that was Kevin Hollinrake talking about Filey Bay whiskey, and it got a really good shout out on Radio 4 the following morning. So I was lying in bed listening to that. And then had endless people texting me saying, "Oh my goodness, you've just been on Radio 4," which is a very unexpected but quite useful piece of PR as well. But Kevin's been very supportive of the distillery ever throughout. So that was an absolutely fantastic piece of PR that was totally unplanned. I'd like to take credit for that, but I'm afraid I can take absolutely nothing. It's always a shame when things like that happen, and it's had nothing to do with you. So I guess if anyone's got any questions, please do feel free to put them into the comments section, and Joe and I will stop being quite so nostalgic and reminiscent, and and take time to answer them. In the meantime as well, I'm just going to do a quick plug, which is that if you're still thinking about your Father's Day presents and you really have left it very late, then don't worry at all, because if you order tonight, we'll send them out tomorrow, and we can send them next day to the UK mainland to your father or father figure or guardian or whoever you fancy it is, whether it's treating yourself. They can still get it by Friday or Saturday. So Joe is proudly very nicely modelling a bottle of Moscatel finish there, which is available on the website, along with our second release. Here's one I made earlier. Well done. Thank you very much, Joe. And
always an arm's reach.
And different of the collection packages that we've put together. So things like our Whiskey Lovers collection, which gets you a bottle of Filey Bay second release, 3 bottles with Swell, which is our barrel aged collaboration with Boltop Brewery, and a copy of Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible 2022. Oh, and a Spirit of Yorkshire Glass. And that will all be packaged up and can be sent directly to whoever you fancy it, with a nice gift message in there too. So a couple of comments coming in. I can see a bit of a discussion about the the newsletter, the email that went out last week about the virtual tasting. We only left half an hour between those 2 emails just because there's only 40 tickets left, and it really felt fair to give our cask owners a heads up, but also to let other people have a chance to get them too. So that's why we did it like that. But then there was still a whole evening between that going out to the general public too. So when we put that out on Facebook, there was only a handful of tickets left. So 40 people was all we felt we could manage for that. But we will now, just looking at how well that sold and the feedback that we're getting so far, and once we've done the event on the 16th of July, we will be thinking about doing other things too. But what we didn't really want to do was oversell that and make it less special for those attending. So we were very much going by a walk before we could run approach to that, which is why there were so limited tickets, and why, unfortunately, some people weren't able to get them.
There will be more.
There will be more tastings. Yeah, it's just a question of managing it. As you know, we're all a small team, and it's just making sure that we can do that to the best of our ability and to the quality and standard that we think you've probably come to expect from us by now as well. So not really any questions coming in this. Oh, well, actually, wait. Will the 3rd release be available by the end of August, before my holidays? 3rd release might not be, but there will be some interesting things coming out before the end of August. So keep an eye on your email inbox. That's all we're saying for that. Towards the end of July and the beginning of August, there'll be some exciting things coming through then.
Definitely.
Definitely. Joe is working hard on that.
There's been a lot of whiskey work over the last 3 months. So yeah, there's some good stuff in the pipeline, definitely.
Yeah, something to cheer everybody up with the general news that's around at the moment.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
We all need a glass of whiskey, I think, most evenings now. Okay, so no more questions coming in. So I think to that end, so does it involve Sherry, our thing coming in? I mean, we couldn't possibly say that. So we'll we won't give away too much just yet, but do keep watching newsletters and email drops about all of the information for that. So I think without any further ado, we will let you get back to your hopefully quite warm and less sea fretty evening than we have here on the coast. Hopefully it's a bit nicer elsewhere in the country. Oh, actually, really good question that's just bobbed in. When will you be open for distillery tours again? So, I mean, the very irritating and vague answer to that is we just don't know. So we're constantly talking about it and working out how we can do it. But just at the moment, with the 2 meter social distancing rule and the size of the distillery that we're struggling to understand how we could safely do that for both customers and staff. But we're definitely thinking about it. And as soon as we have any answers and timings and dates, we'll be in touch across the various different ways in which we try to communicate with customers. Similarly, just to reiterate that hopefully many of you have seen this, but the distillery shop reopened again on Monday, which was the 15th of June. So we're currently open as a retail and bottle shop only Mondays to Fridays, 10 till 3 p.m. 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Unfortunately, again, we still don't have the pot still coffee shop open just because of the various different guidances and regulations that we need to adhere to, obviously, to be as safe as possible. So again, we're constantly reassessing and discussing and trying to work out how we can do things, but just at the moment it's not feasible and it's not possible. Mm-hmm. Oh, great question that's just come in, Joe. This one's for you. Any plans for anything?
Any plans for anything PT? Never say never. You know, with it's always on the agenda in kind of production meetings and what we can do. We've got a few things we'd need to be really sure on before we took the plunge and made some peated spirit. But in terms of laying down some pit casks that have previously held peated whiskey, potentially, there might be something interesting there. But yeah, I think again, we're all about kind of nice and fruity and super kind of light and soft and easy going. And so yeah, even if we did dip our toe in the water with peated whiskey, it certainly wouldn't become the kind of the trajectory for the distillery. But yeah, I'm a big fan of peated whiskey, as you rightly pointed out. And fair to say, there's some other people in the distillery team that are quite keen on that style as well. So I think it would be, I think every chance basically at some stage.
Yeah, watch this space, as with everything, but this space might also be 10 years, so who knows?
Yeah.
There is that too. Okay, right, well, I think that's everything. So we're pretty much bang on 30 minutes, which is where we aim to be. So we'll say good night, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Great. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Thank you.